Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I am your host, Patrick Lyons. Because you already seen the breaking news that the Dodgers are set to meet with Juan Soto and his agent, Scott Boras. Because you don't want to hear that. You want to hear something a little bit different. Thanks for joining me today. We are fresh off the heels of National League and American League Rookie of the Year award voting. I'm going to let you know how that ended up shaking out. We've got plenty of stadium news. Maid Park is going to get a new nickname. And the Tampa Bay Rays, they've got more bad news on their way. Plenty of Rockies news and notes. And if I get some time to do it, also, the new 2025 Baseball Hall of Fame ballot has been released. But let's get things jumping off with the Rookie of the Year award announced Monday night. No Rockies anywhere near the top 3 votes on anybody's ballot. And I bring that up partially because earlier last week, or rather late last week, we had the all MLB team. No Rockies made it the first or second team. They are still, since 2019, since the all MLB team was first introduced to the world of MLB, they are now the only team to never have a player represented either on the first or the second team. But American League Rookie of the Year award voters went to the polls, and it was going to be close. We knew it was probably going to be a very tight race between Luis Gil of the New York Yankees and Colton Cowser of the Baltimore Orioles. I did sort of think at first it was going to be Cowser for much of this season. Then I started to get the temperature that maybe Gil was going to win, and he did. 106 to 101 on points. The third closest ever election for American League Rookie of the Year award. We had a tie in 1979, and in 2003, Angel Baroa of the Royals had 88 points to Hideki Matsui's 84 points. Luis Gil, the 10th Yankee to win the American League Rookie of the Year award, the first since Aaron Judge in 2017. And unfortunately, because he was let go by the Rockies earlier in this offseason last month, we can't say that the American League Rookie of the Year award winner was traded for a Colorado Rocky. Not true anymore, but we can say a former Colorado Rocky in Jake Cave. He, yes, was traded for an eventual Rookie of the Year award. That was something he was certainly proud of, to say, hey, not a lot of guys can say they were traded for a future Rookie of the Year award. You can actually read that article over on justbaseball.com to hear more of what Jake Cave had to say about Luis Gil's fantastic 2024 season. Colton Cowser ended up finishing, or rather ended up being found on more ballots than Gil, 27 to 26. Wild. On more ballots, yet had less points. Third place finisher Austin Wells was only on 11 ballots. So down the ballot, in fourth and fifth place, you had Mason Miller and Cade Smith, a pair of relievers, who both received first place votes. So despite the fact that they each received a first place vote, they finished fourth and fifth. Wyatt Langford received a second place vote. It was from a Texas Rangers writer. Keep in mind, Wyatt Langford did still have a really, really solid season. A little bit under the radar, I think, in many ways. Despite this second place vote, Wyatt Langford did finish seventh. In sixth, we had Wilyer Abreu for the Red Sox. Only one New York writer actually put Cowser first. Or rather, I should say, one New York writer put Cowser first. The other had Gil first. There was a New York voter had Cowser first, Wells second, and Gil third. So as much as you're going to say, well, New York media, Yankees players, et cetera, it was pretty well balanced. The voters in Baltimore were also split. One had Cowser, one had Gil. Let's get to the National League voting, because this was probably the more interesting one, despite the fact that American League was going to be close. It was really all about whether or not Paul Skenes was going to be a unanimous winner in the National League. I think anyone on the outside looking in would have said, this definitely was a no-doubter. Paul Skenes, a historic season for a pitcher, doing things we just have never seen from a player. Again, a lot of that is a narrative. A lot of that is not so much what he did in 2024, but knowing full well that he debuted less than a year after being drafted. He debuted a year after he was still in college. So that being part of the narrative, you think that's going to help him? He's going to be a slam dunk, no doubt, unanimous winner. But as I've been mentioning it here on the Rockies Insider for the last couple of weeks, what Jackson Merrill was able to do for the Padres this year was incredible. What he was able to do late in ball games as a rookie. If you want to talk about narratives, you've got a guy who had never played center field before this season. He was a shortstop on a team full of shortstops playing out of position, and he goes to center field, debuts in South Korea, and is ultimately an MVP caliber candidate. We know Paul Skenes will be in the top three, most likely third place in the National League Cy Young Award voting. But I expect Jackson Merrill to get some down ballot votes for NL MVP. I think he has a decent shot to even be in the top 10 of MVP votes. Skenes may not, which is going to be strange to think that Merrill gets more MVP points than Skenes, and yet Skenes wins Rookie of the Year award. They're different awards, and we'll have to talk about that later on this week if any of that does come to fruition, but that would not be a total shock to me. So it was not a surprise that Skenes was not a unanimous winner on Monday night. I thought it could be as close as 18-12 and as far apart as 25-5 in favor of Skenes, and ended up being 23-7. Everybody, all 30 voters, again, that is 2 voters in all 15 National League cities, all 30 voters had Skenes and Merrill at 1 and 2 in some order. For the third place vote, 26 had Jackson Churio getting their third place vote. 4 voted for Shota Imanaga as third place on their ballot. Since going to a 3-player ballot in 1980, this is actually the fewest amount of players who have received National League Rookie of the Year award votes. That's right, since 1980. Skenes also becomes the second Pirate to win the award, following Jason Bay, outfielder Jason Bay in 2004, and he becomes the first Pirates pitcher to win the NL Rookie of the Year award. Just an outstanding season for Paul Skenes, and it's only getting more and more exciting. Now, you might remember that during the pandemic, baseball card collecting started to creep up, started to rise. It hit somewhat of another boom. And while I think it's died down a little bit, Fanatics has done a really good job at keeping the hobby at the top. It's keeping the hobby interesting, intriguing. Since 2023 being the first year that Fanatics took over, they had the ingenious idea of putting a patch on a player's sleeve, the MLB debut patch, which after that player's first game, they would take that patch off, they would put it on a card, the player would sign it. It would be a 1-of-1 MLB debut card. So every player since 2023 has one of these cards. It's an unbelievable concept for them to put out. And when you've got a player like Paul Skenes, who we just haven't seen a player quite like him in a very, very long time, his MLB debut patch card is going to be worth a lot. In fact, it should be noted that the Pittsburgh Pirates, they've got a bounty out on this card. Now, it was just released. Topps just released the 2024 Chrome Update Series just last Wednesday. I think you can pick these up at Target. I think I might have seen a pack at Target and almost grabbed because I didn't realize it was coming out yet. I do collect baseball cards, not hardcore. I know enough about it. I mostly watch rather than participate. Would love to participate a lot more. But these packs are available even in Target. I think I've even seen cards at Barnes & Noble, believe it or not. But 1-of-1 debut patch card. Paul Skenes is in this set. Jackson Holiday from earlier this year. Ellie De La Cruz from 2023. Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Junior Caminero. Jackson Churio. Shota Imanaga. Jackson Merrill. Jason Dominguez. Wyatt Langford. They are all in this set of 2024 Topps Chrome Update Series 1. It's incredible. If you're looking just for the Rockies, Hunter Goodman is also in this set. I know Brenton Doyle has a card. I'm not sure if it's been ripped open yet. I'm not sure if anyone has found that. Anyone that has debuted in the past 2 years is going to get one of these cards. That is certainly something that I'm going to have to talk about with the boys over at Blake Street Banner about that. When they get somebody on, the next time they do, ask them about their MLB debut patch card, because it's still brand new. It's so interesting. And we've seen videos of guys signing that card and what it means to them. And we're starting to see more and more players collecting their own cards and wanting their own cards and wanting that patch that was on their jersey from their debut. As much as they want it, as much as it is theirs, it's not theirs. It's yours for the taking. Buy some packs, rip them open. You never know what you're going to get. There's been an unprecedented amount of social media content that has gone out there from people reaching out to players, or rather players reaching out to people saying, hey, that's me. That's my card. I'll be glad to pay you for it. I can give you some bats. I can autograph some baseballs. Like, this is revolutionary, what is going on right now in the baseball card hobby. And it's incredible. It's very, very exciting. And the Pittsburgh Pirates have upped the ante. And I imagine there'll be more teams who start doing this, but the Pirates, they're trying to get ahead of the trend. They know they've got something really great. They know they've got something good in Paul Skenes. And they have said, if you open up this pack of cards, now this is an important detail. I'm not sure if you have to give up this card or not. Because the card itself is it going to be worth $1 million card? No, not right now. It depends on if it gets graded. You imagine it's got to be a PSA 10. But an important detail that I don't know. I can't imagine you're going to trade this card in for what I'm about to tell you you're going to get. Now, it's a haul. You're going to get a lot for it. But I don't know that you have to give up the card. Maybe you give the card for the Pirates to put it out on display, but you still own it. It's still yours, kind of like fine pieces of art that get donated to museums. But if you open up that pack of cards, the Pirates are going to give you 2 season tickets behind home plate for the next 30 years. All right, now I'm beginning to think you do need to give up this card. But still, 30 years, 30 times 81. All right, so that's 2,430 games that you're going to be sitting behind home plate. I guess that's pretty good. A meet and greet with Paul Skenes. Gotta like that. 2 autographed Skenes jerseys. A softball game at PNC Park with coaching from Pirates alumni. That's cool, rubbing elbows with some of your favorite buccos. You get a private tour of the Pirates spring training facility of Pirate City and Lecom Park, plus other unique experiences at their Florida homes. You get to take batting practice and warm up with the team. And then on top of all of that, Paul Skenes, his significant other, his girlfriend, they both attended LSU together, Livvy Dunne. She upped the ante by saying you can sit with her in a Pirates suite during a game. So they are throwing everything out at you to say, please let us know if you get this card and give it to us. There's no way you can turn that card over for that. And then if you don't, the Pirates are going to say, no, we're not going to give you any of these things. Now, the tickets for 30 years behind home plate, that's a big one. Also, if you rip that card open and you're from California, those tickets don't mean anything to you. I mean, I'd rather have the tickets than the cash value for me. Even if I might only go to half the games, if I had an offer like this, I might only go to half the games, give away the other half. To me, I'd rather that than the money that those tickets cost. That's just me, but it'll be interesting to see if anyone rips it up. In fact, right before I logged on Monday night, someone just opened up the 1/1 Ellie De La Cruz card. So boom, that is now off the table. That's it. Somebody owns that now. So it's wild. It's definitely exciting time in the baseball card industry and for hobbyists everywhere out there. Paul Skenes, Luis Heel, congratulations on becoming National League Rookie of the Year award winners. Manager of the Year gets announced on Tuesday night. I will be going live on Tuesday after the announcement because, yes, that is where my vote was. It was for National League Manager of the Year. You got to tune in. You got to go over to justbaseball.com as well. There will be an article that goes up just after that announcement breaking down my ballot for National League Manager of the Year. Also in good news, the Rockies, they've got themselves a championship, kind of. That's right. Sunday was the Arizona Fall League championship game. Salt River Rafters versus the surprise Sahuaros, who are looking to go 3 in a row in the AFL. And the Rockies prospects, they contributed heavy to a 3-2 victory to take home the championship, the Rafters' first championship since 2019. And Rockies prospects contributed a lot to not just the championship game, but to the season. In the game, Evan Justice earned his first save of the Arizona Fall League. Evan Justice, being on the Rockies' 40-man roster, a player very much in line for a spot on the opening day roster. You can't have enough lefty relievers, and we know in the past the Rockies just haven't had enough. And after missing all of 2022, he came roaring back in a rather impressive fashion in 2023 to make his major league debut. And down in Arizona, he made history by throwing 8 2/3 no-hit innings during the regular season. Did not allow a single hit during any of the Rafters regular season games. And he was really impressive. And he did a good job leaning into that sinker, throwing 16 out of his 19 pitches to get the save for the Rafters. Catching the final out over at first base, Skylar Messenger, who did a really nice job, particularly in that game, scored 2 runs, including what ended up being the game decisive run. He was the only one to score 2 runs for the Rafters. Reached base 3 times, twice via walk, and once on a double that was hot off the bat, 103.4 miles an hour. And he even had a hard hit at 101.4, which ended up being a fly out to center in that game. So you get the save, you get the final out squeezed by members of the Colorado Rockies. It's got to make you feel good about the future of the organization. Ryan Ritter, it should be noted, despite the fact that he did get off to somewhat of a slow start here in the AFL, he looked solid all year with AA Hartford. He played great in the 2 playoff games, 2 multi-hit efforts, the only player to have that going on for him. Even slugged a 2-run homer in his final at bat on Saturday's play-in game. And he had, I want to say, he was 4th in the Arizona Fall League in average exit velocity. So doing a nice job as a player that a lot of people are whispering, hey, he could be the next man up for Brendan Rodgers' starting second base job should Rodgers get traded. We know Adiel Amador is out there. Does he need a little bit more seasoning? He is a little bit younger than Ryan Ritter. We'll wait to see what happens, but Ryan Ritter definitely going to be a player. He was already at spring training this past year in big league camp. Expect him to be there again, and maybe, just maybe, a big league invite will come for Gabriel Hughes. Not that I think he'll crack the opening day roster. That's probably a long shot, as he's just getting back from that Tommy John surgery he had last summer in 2023. But he ended up leading the Rafters in innings pitched and did a really solid job. Don't worry too much about his earned run average, but he's only 18 months removed from that Tommy John surgery. So good to get him back on the field in some heavy competition there. So good news for the Rockies farm system winning that championship in the Arizona Fall League. That definitely was a very positive thing, I think, for these young guys who are continuing to learn how to win as a team, to win as a unit. We saw Fresno do it in 2023, Hartford making the postseason for the first time in 2024. And there definitely is something to minor league teams having success. Not so much in AAA, because you can get a lot more veteran players there, those quadruple A players, those guys that have bounced around in other organizations. They're in their late 20s and not so much prospects anymore. You can win championships that way, but when it's AA or lower, you have these guys that are learning to win as a unit. And, on one hand, you could argue that, how important is that for developing players? By that, I mean developing individual players, because if you're trying to get yourself a superstar, you don't necessarily needing them bunting over a guy in order to try to put someone in scoring position. Those are important things, and those are important skills to have. But that is very minor towards just developing talent. And I think for the most part, teams, while they try to play that small ball at various times to win those ball games in the minors, to win championships, a majority of the games are just go out there, work on what we've been developing. And if you play well, you're going to win. And in those moments in which you have an opportunity to win a ball game and maybe not work on what you're trying to do, going the opposite way, taking pitches, whatever that may be, that's only one at bat that you might be sacrificing in 400 plus that you might have over the course of a minor league season. So overall, really positive stuff for the Colorado Rockies and their farm system. Rockies Insider here with Patrick Lyons. We've got a lot of stadium news going on, and it's not all good news. I'll say that much. And I've got some Coors Field business to talk about. And you know what? Yes, I am going to talk about this new 2025 Baseball Hall of Fame ballot that has been released. 2 Rockies on the list, 2 Rockies not on the list. Who are they? Stick around and find out. But the news on Monday, Maid Park, after 22 or so seasons, Maid Park is changing their name for the Houston Astros. The Stros home will now be Daikin Park, Daikin. Daikin is a Japanese company. That's actually the world's largest maker of air conditioners. So wrap your head around that one. This is technically going to be the 5th different name that this ballpark will be known as since it was constructed in the year 2000. Now, initially, I did not remember this. Initially, that ballpark there in Houston was referred to as the ballpark at Union Station, T-Bus, I guess you could call it, during the planning stage. That never lasted very much. I do know that in San Francisco, Oracle Park, it's had a lot of different names, Pac Bell Park, AT&T Park. Sometimes it is referred to as the ballpark in China Basin because that is that neighborhood. So I have heard that. Maybe this is something that starts to happen now that the Astros home has undergone so many changes, but it officially had the first name of Enron Field from 2000 to February of 2002. That name change or that naming rights situation ended rather abruptly because there was a widespread fraud scandal for Enron that wiped their name off the building. So for about 5 months in 2002, it was known as Astros Field. Didn't remember that. And then from July 2002 until what will be the end of this year, Maid Park. And now, starting January 1, 2025, Daikin Park. What's interesting about this news is the Minute Maid deal was supposed to run through 2029. And it's still unknown why this deal ended early. It was reportedly worth $170 million for 28 years. So now Astros probably getting a little less money than what they were originally expected to get in this Minute Maid deal. Again, details are not out yet, so I'm purely speculating here on this. You're probably asking yourself, well, okay, so the Astros, they just got a new deal, they're now flush with cash from this new naming rights deal, or rather, they're at least breaking even from what their previous Minute Maid deal was that ended abruptly. When is Coors Field going to get a new name? Coors Field, that is a brand. It's not called Rockies Ballpark. There are not very many of them around. Yankee Stadium, Angel Stadium, and there's one more, and I'm drawing a blank. Is that it? It's just Yankee Stadium, Angel Stadium. This is where the chat would come in and help me out just a little bit. I'm going to say there's one more, and for the life of me, I can't think of it. Maybe it'll come back to me, but I got the 2 right there. It is not ever going to be Rockies Ballpark. In fact, it will never not be known as Coors Field, because in 1991, when the Colorado Rockies were getting funding for what would be their new ballpark in lower downtown Denver, in the Lodo district of Denver, they were a little bit short, and the Coors Brewing Company came in. They chipped in $15 million for this new ballpark in 1991 to help fund the stadium. And the naming rights that Coors Brewing Company had negotiated for $15 million, they were and are in perpetuity. That's right. Coors Field will never not be known as Coors Field. The only way the Colorado Rockies don't ever play at Coors Field is if they play at a location that is not 2001 Blake Street. That is the only way that it could possibly happen. Now, on one hand, you say the Rockies got $15 million back in 1991, and now there's no way for them to bring in any additional revenue. They lost their TV deal, and now they can't bring in any more money. Nobody else wants to stream their games. MLB.com is doing it now, and they're getting a fraction that they were getting from AT&T Sportsnet. Joelle Milholm, got to have her on coming up here very, very soon. Joelle Milholm, incredible article over on Purple Row. I recommend you check that out about a creative way that the Rockies could bring in a little bit more money so that they aren't quite as cash strapped and maybe don't have to cut payroll as much. Or even if they do decide to make certain trades for players on expiring deals, Rogers, Gomber, Quantrill, Marquez, they can get creative and also add a little bit of money in a trade. A sponsor patch. Rockies are one of only 7 teams to not have a sponsor patch. Those other clubs, most of them are, if not all of them, are small clubs. Then the Washington Nationals, they're in a big market. They're the only other National League team that does not have a sponsor patch. Joel, incredible job on that. Got to make sure we talk with Joel Milholm at some time in the next couple of weeks about that and so much more incredible writing going on over there in Purple Row. But on one hand, you can say they only got $15 million and they can't negotiate anything else. That typical Rockies, what a mistake. On the other hand, I would say, you know what? We didn't really have these kind of sponsorship deals at that time in 1991. We were still in somewhat of a gray area, or rather, we were still in a void coming out of the concrete donut era of the 1970s and the mid-90s boom that really got started with Camden Yards. And yes, the Rockies were right there at the forefront of that, but it still was incredibly new. So I could give them a pass. Sure, you can say they didn't have any forethought to think, hey, this was the future of what's going to happen, and maybe we need to keep the window open. Again, maybe you can be critical of them, but I don't know that if they didn't strike this deal with Coors Brewing Company, that they wouldn't have been $15 million short of creating a baseball mecca, and then they would have had no other way of making up that $15 million. I don't know. So as much as I think a lot of people would love to hammer them and be really critical of that, and there's probably another section of fans that don't like being critical at all and say, no, that's not fair, or no, that's just trying to dunk on the Rockies. The truth might be somewhere in the middle. The truth is, we don't know the truth. But both sides, you make a case. Maybe you just walk away from the table and agree to disagree. Right? The truth might be somewhere in the middle, or it might be both of those things. We don't know. What we do know is the Tampa Bay Rays right now are very much in a world of hurt. Hurricane Milton damaged Tropicana Field. They are going to need about $56 million in repairs, and the Rays are going to have to play all of 2025 at George M. Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, except the Tampa Bay Rays don't play in the same county as Tampa. Let me break this down. Let me make it more complicated before it starts to make more sense. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they play in Tampa, the city of Tampa, which is in Hillsborough County. The Tampa Bay Rays play in St. Petersburg, which is in Pinellas County. And because Major League Baseball and the Rays decided that George M. Steinbrenner Field in Hillsborough County, Tampa, was a better fit for them, more modern accommodations. There was less that needed to be done to turn it to make it major league quality. It also seated more at 11,000. That, you know what, the government, the officials in St. Petersburg in Pinellas County said, well, wait a minute, you should be playing your games in Clearwater because that's in Pinellas County. That's in the same county. You crossed county lines to play at another ballpark, and now Pinellas County is going to feel the brunt of that, or rather is not going to benefit from that. And because of that, those in charge in Pinellas County postponed another vote to approach the bonds or to approve the bonds for the Rays' new stadium in 2028. We thought that in July of this past year, the $6.5 billion deal that was going to develop the area around Tropicana Field in what is the historic gas plant district was going to go down. Now, the Rays don't have those bonds approved right now. The Tampa Bay Rays, we knew that they were struggling for a home in 2025, and now they've got a new home. It's a minor league ballpark. Okay. We weren't sure what was going to happen in 2026 and 2027 because they were moving into a new ballpark in 2028. Well, guess what? They don't even have the ballpark in 2028. So what's going to happen? Are they going to be, is Pinellas County going to force the Rays to stay at Tropicana Field? We'll do the repairs. I don't think so. I don't think MLB is going to be forced into doing a deal like that. It might mean they have to move out of Pinellas County, that they have to go somewhere else in the Tampa region or the Tampa Bay region. I know Ybor City was a possibility. It's a mess. It's a mess. I talked about it last week with Manny Randhawa on Thursday's show. Make sure you either check out the podcast discussing it or the live show over on YouTube, the Rockies Insider channel. But talking about an MLB right now, they've got a bit of a problem. They're going to have at least for the next year, they're going to have two of their teams for at least the next year playing in minor league facilities. That's not great. We know the Arizona Coyotes had to deal with that last year before moving to Utah, and that was an awful situation for folks in Arizona, in Phoenix, in the Valley. That was awful. And something like that could possibly be happening in the Tampa Bay region with the Rays. And I to my knowledge, I don't think the A's are officially locked into Las Vegas yet. Until that really, really gets done, and I don't know at what point we say, no, it's going to happen. There still might be a chance. There still might be a chance to get a deal done in Oakland. Maybe the Rays go to Las Vegas. The name would work. Las Vegas Rays. Yeah, the sun's trying to kill you out there. We've got a long way to go until we get to expansion. It feels like it was 5 years ago that we were 5-10 years away from expansion. Commissioner Rob Manfred might have even said 5 to 8 years. But we are still at least 5 to 10 years away from expansion because these teams need to get their new ballparks tightened up. This is exactly why. This is exactly why you need to get all the stadiums figured out and situated before you're going to get two cities and two new ownership groups to say, all right, since we don't have any option, because since all of these teams are settled, we will pay the $2+ billion required of an expansion fee. But until that happens, there can be other owners and ownership groups that go out there and say, you know what, we might be able to steal a team from another city that has some ballpark issues or is getting out of their lease coming up sometime soon. Chicago White Sox, they're going to be banging that drum here very soon, I think, if they can't get themselves a new ballpark, which is something Jerry Reinsdorf wants. It's complicated. This is the not so fun part about professional sports and baseball. I wouldn't call this fun, but it's certainly interesting. Camden Yards, they're getting new outfield dimensions. It was announced late last week, GM Mike Elias revealing that after getting a new left field dimensions 3 years ago, where they moved it back just to a graveyard where it was almost impossible to hit a ball out into left field. It was the hardest ballpark for right-handed hitters to homer at. It was harder than Progressive Field in Cleveland, harder than PNC Park in Pittsburgh. But now they are going to move that wall in a little bit by 20 feet 11 feet in some areas. They're going to lower the wall down just a little bit. They want it to be more of a neutral ballpark. They also want it to be a little bit more friendly to some free agents, because if you're a free agent out there and you're a right-handed hitter, especially if you're signing more of a short-term deal, it's not something that's long-term. If you're Pete Alonso and the Orioles come knocking, they're going to pay you big bucks. And then at that point, if you end up hitting, closer to 30 home runs every year instead of 40, you're paying me. You're compensating me really well. I'm okay with, not hitting as many. I'm okay with losing, 7 home runs a year and going bald prematurely because this is stressing me out. And that you're not as stressed because you're getting paid. But if it's someone on a shorter term deal, if it's like a Teoscar Hernandez, if Anthony Santander's out there looking, saying, shoot, I don't know if I want to take this qualifying offer because I want to go get paid somewhere else because this ballpark's sapping my numbers when I'm batting right-handed. So that is an interesting new development here in the American League with Camden Yards. Qualifying offer deadline is on Tuesday. We also have got the deadline for players that have to get added to the 40-man roster, or else they will be eligible for the Rule 5 draft. The Rockies have a few decisions to make on players. Zach Veen is the only guaranteed slam dunk. After that, the recently re-signed Connor Van Scoyac seems like he has a decent shot. And then from there, we could only be looking at about one more. Maybe Juan Guerrero, who played well in the Arizona Fall League, or maybe someone like a Braden Ward. We will find out tomorrow at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. And I'll talk about those guys that were added on that National League Manager of the Year award show announcement. It's my show. It's a post-award show, so I can reveal my ballot to you. Nick Martinez has decided, he's going to accept the qualifying offer ahead of Tuesday's deadline. He might be the only one. He really might be the only one, because despite the fact that, $21 million for 1 year is a good deal, that's $21 million for 1 year. What happens after 2025? Will your market still be as hot as it is right now? I mean, think about a 3-year, say, $32 million contract. 3 years, $32 million. That's less than 10 per year. No, it's not. That's less than 11 million per year. You go, shoot, he can make 21 million in 2025. True, he can. But are you going to make 11 million more after that? Now, depending on the player, sure, you're going to have a lot of confidence that you're going to. But if you need Tommy John surgery, you might not ever sign another contract after that. And if you do, you might have to prove it for $3-4 million. And then play really well. And then after that, all right, now we'll give you $5 million. And you still haven't made up that difference. Guaranteed money is guaranteed money. So despite a $21 million average annual salary for 1 year, what happens after that? It's one of the reasons why Nick Martinez, I think, is going to be the only guy who accepts the offer. Over the last 3 years, since he came back from Asia, 3.31 ERA in the last 3 seasons. 2 with the Padres, 1 with the Reds, 1.26 ERA plus. He is already 34. So if he takes this deal in 2025, if he is able to still have a solid campaign next year with the Reds, he still might be able to make a 2-3 year deal. So he's really betting on himself to have a good 2025, more so than anybody else, because everyone else is saying, I bet on myself this year. And so now I'm going to see what I can get out there. Maybe you only accept a 1-2 year deal, but teams are not going to offer up as much for a 1-2 year deal for a player that just rejected a qualifying offer, because when you reject that qualifying offer, the team that signs you has to give up a draft pick. So there's a catch. That's one of the things the Players Association doesn't really like right now about the qualifying offer, is it's hurting the market for some players who go out there because they're hearing from the teams that want them, we want you, but we just don't want to have to give up that draft pick. And that is going to tamp down values. That's why the owners wanted that caveat in the qualifying offer. It's a give and take. In other Reds news, Jonathan India for Brady Singer. By the time you're listening to this, maybe the deal has already been made official. The Reds are going to be interesting in 2025. Nick Martinez coming back. That gives them a strong rotation, still a pretty young rotation. But with Terry Francona inserted as their manager, they're all about winning right now. And they've said that they're not going to increase their payroll by a ton. It might go up a little bit, but still, they had some contracts coming off the books, so they can get creative. Nick Martinez coming back does eat a chunk of what they were looking to spend in 2025, but they can get creative. If they can acquire Brady Singer for another former University of Florida Gator, that could be a really great win-win. Reds have a little bit of infield depth. Noelvi Marte, he is coming off that PED suspension last year, but a full season for him. Maybe over at second base. Maybe he goes to third. Santiago Espinal goes to second base. Maybe they were able to sign a short 1-year deal with a veteran, bring in someone like an Adam Frazier. The Reds are going to be players next year. Guaranteed. You can bet on that. In some other Rockies news, Connor Kaiser signs a minor league deal with the Diamondbacks. Rafael Ortega. Who's Rafael Ortega? If you said that, that's okay. You're a newer Rockies fan. And newer could be 3-4 years. That's okay. But Rafael Ortega, 2012 Colorado Rockies. Went away for a while, and he keeps coming back for a cup of coffee. He signs a minor league deal with the Mets. It got me thinking, is Rafael Ortega the longest active former Rocky? Is there anybody that played with the Rockies in 2012 or before that is still playing? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I should have been ready for this, but I'm getting myself by surprise here to think who else it could be. LeMahieu came after. Adam Ottavino came after. I'm just gonna have to look up and down the roster. Tyler Chatwood, I believe, retired. Drew Pomerantz, he still might be kicking around. No, LeMahieu, that was his first year, 2012. 2012 was his first year, so LeMahieu tied for the answer to that question. William Rosario is probably playing somewhere else, but certainly not in the majors. Charlie Blackmon was previously the answer to that question. I'm going to have to look that back up again. That was an interesting one. Outfielder Jimmy Herron signs a minor league deal with the Brewers. And one of the bigger pieces of news. Did I say newses? Oh boy. That's what happens when you have a long weekend for yourself. You say things like newses. You're pluralizing a word that's already pluralized. But the big piece of news for a lot of Rockies fans out there is the 2025 Hall of Fame ballot. It was released on Monday, and there are 2 members of the Colorado Rockies on it. Now, Ichiro Suzuki and CC Sabathia lead a group of 14 players who will appear on the ballot for the first time. Dustin Pedroia is going to be there. Ian Kinsler, Felix Hernandez, Curtis Granderson are some of the bigger names. Brian McCann, I think, is a player that's going to continue to get not continue. This is his first year, but I think he's going to get the 5% needed to stay on the ballot. Remember, he is a catcher, so his career numbers aren't going to have the same quantity to them, more quality as a catcher. One of the best in the game during his era. But the 2 Rockies, Carlos Gonzalez and Troy Tulowitzki. That's right. Tulo and Cargo together again. Crazy that they'd be on the ballot the same year. That's pretty wild. Only once did they ever make the postseason together. In 2009, Tulo was there by himself, as far as that tandem is concerned. In 2007, and Cargo was there 2 other times, in 2017 and in 2018. One of only 2 players to ever make 3 postseasons with the Rockies. The other being Chris Iannetta, believe it or not. Also returning on the ballot, Billy Wagner. This is his 10th and final year. Expect Billy Wagner to go into the Hall of Fame next summer on July 27th. He got 73.8% last year, so slam dunk. easy. He'll be getting in. Probably be up in the mid-80s if I had to guess. Andrew Jones, Carlos Beltran, both around 60% last year. Maybe one or both of them get in. I could see Jones's numbers getting a bump. Beltran, it's still hard to know. See, how much is he going to be punished for the Houston Astros sign-stealing scandal? Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, a little bit above 30%. Year 9 for Manny Ramirez. He's going to need to make some big moves this year if he is ever going to get in on the Baseball Writers Association of America ballot in 2026. Chase Utley returns, Omar Vizquel, Bobby Abreu, Jimmy Rollins, Andy Pettitte, Mark Burley, Francisco Rodriguez, Torrey Hunter, and David Wright all returned for a second ballot or more. I will definitely be talking a lot more about this. Have the guy, our buddy, my guy, and my buddy, and your buddy, Manny Randhawa, the other man Ram, the man Rand. Manny Randhawa talking about the Hall of Fame class of 2025. Ballots must be submitted by the end of the year, December 31st. The announcement, January 21st, live on MLB Network. Remember last year with the announcement for Todd Helton? How great was that? If you were there with me down at the Cherry Cricket, right across the street from Coors Field, and the rest of the sabermetricians, all of the rest of the Society for American Baseball Research, our Rocky Mountain chapter here in Denver, man, that was amazing. I don't know if we'll do that again. Special occasion for Rockies only players, but there are 2 Rockies that are on this ballot that I'm not sure that they're going to get the 5% to stick around. Now, certainly there was a period of time in which you could have made the case that Cargo was on a Hall of Fame trajectory. You could have made the case that Troy Tulowitzki was on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Unfortunately, injuries, I think, really ended their careers somewhat abruptly. Carlos Gonzalez, a guy who has an incredible postseason track record, doesn't get discussed enough. Only one player has started postseason games with 5 multi-hit games. Carlos Gonzalez did that. 2 hits in his first 5 games in the playoffs. That's the kind of player he was. Pepper Martin, the only other one. Cargo, 10 of his 12 seasons with the Rockies. That's the other thing you're surprised about. Only 12 years in the majors. Yeah. Year 1 with the Oakland Athletics. Year 12 with both Cleveland and the Chicago Cubs. We would all like to forget that. Number 5, hang it in the rafters, retire it. You don't have to convince me. You don't have to convince me. But 3 postseason seasons, or rather 3 playoff appearances over 3 years with the Rockies. Only Chris Iannetta did that. And then in terms of just games played, only Todd Helton and Charlie Blackmon have played in more October games than Carlos Gonzalez. He won a batting title, hit .336 in 2010, started the All-Star game as a DH during his career, and was a great clubhouse guy. Just so well beloved. I remember being in the clubhouse in 2019. There were actually a couple of players that had called Cargo on FaceTime. He hadn't signed with anyone yet. And they were like, are you coming or what? Like, let's go. Bring this thing back. And, you know, you have to wonder if he came back in 2019, if, you know, maybe things would have been different in that 2019 season when, as of July 1st, the Rockies had a tie for the second and final wildcard spot in the National League. And a little bit more of a veteran presence, like a Carlos Gonzalez, maybe could have gotten them a little bit further across that finish line, or at least across the trade deadline finish line, where the Rockies would have been acquiring players rather than just standing pat, not really doing anything. Troy Tulowitzki, man, the greatest what if, I think, in Rockies history. Right alongside, of course, those 8 days off after winning the National League and then having to wait for the Red Sox to start the 2007 World Series. The 2 greatest what ifs, but certainly the greatest player what if. I think Tyler Kepner wrote in The Athletic, Tulo was the first big leaguer ever signed to a deal that stretched into the 2020s. Right? Right after that 2010 season, he signed a 10-year deal. Really was hoping to be the Rockies' version of what Derek Jeter was to the Yankees. Unfortunately, again, a little bit banged up, and there just came a time where Rockies wanted to save a little bit of payroll. And so in the middle of the night, when the team was on the road, despite the fact that Tulo was promised that he would not get traded, he was traded to the Toronto Blue Jays. Did make the postseason the next 2 years with the Blue Jays, so was very important to that organization. Very, very important. Finished second in the Rookie of the Year award voting in 2007. Go back and look. Very much should have been the winner, especially knowing what we know now about Ryan Braun. And again, a career ended early, only 32 years old, when he played, I want to say, one game in April of 2019, starting at shortstop, the same position and the same location as his childhood hero, Derek Jeter, doing it for the New York Yankees. So Tulo, Cargo on the ballot. Ian Desmond, Mark Reynolds, great careers, but they did not make this year's Hall of Fame ballot. They will not be on it next year's either. You get one shot at it. And that's why just being on a ballot is an honor. Just being on a Hall of Fame ballot certainly is an absolute honor. So you got to hope that at least one person out there, Tulo and Cargo, will throw those guys a vote, because that's also a special thing. Getting a vote, getting a Hall of Fame vote is a very unique thing that, not a lot of Rockies can say they've received. Very few have been on a ballot. Very few have even received a vote. So we'll see what happens. Ryan Spader will be keeping track of all of those things. I don't think any Hall of Fame ballots have even been submitted just yet. They may have just gone out in the mail on Monday. So no one might have has even received it, let alone cast their vote, sent it in to the powers that be. But tell you what, your powers be keeping me moving. How's that for a segue? Your powers do definitely help me out. I appreciate you sticking around, giving me that momentum. At Patrick D. Lyons on Blue Sky. I mean, I've been there. I just haven't been too active. Doing a lot more stuff over on the Blue Sky side of things. Also Threads. You can catch me there as well. TikTok, X, Instagram, you name it, the Rockies Insider. And the YouTube channel is a big one. Make sure you're going over there, checking out all the videos, seeing what you missed over the course of the 2024 season. Appreciate this momentum from sticking around for me, and I really do appreciate it. More shows coming up this week, talking Rockies, talking baseball. You love it. I love it. We're sick and we're twisted because of it. But thanks for that momentum. I appreciate it. That momentum, unfortunately, can only serve me for so long. That's why I like to say tomorrow, my momentum is only as good as my next show. So I'll talk to you then.